Greetings. We have a very special program this evening. Things are changing, and things are changing drastically in our community. But one of the things we can do is be proactive with this change. And tonight, I want to introduce three Duartians who have not only committed their time, but represent us in many ways. Sitting next to me, we have Sam Kang, our mayor. Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
I am well, thank you. And then with us, we also have Councilman John Fasana.
Hello, Manoj.
How are you?
Glad to be here.
And Council Margaret Finley. Also, might I add, both have held the position of mayor in the past. I want to welcome you and thank you for your time.
Thanks
Now-
for inviting us.
Well, thank you for being here. Now, the important issue that we have going on, especially coming up next month, is the special measure D that's coming up on the ballot. And I think if there's been an important issue that has faced our community, I think this is one of the first ones, at least for year 2020. With that said, Mayor Sam, what is your thought on that? Set us a tone.
Well, I truly believe that we have to be fiscally responsible. All along during my time as a city council member, I always believe in spending money wisely, fiscally responsible. I don't want to raise taxes. But now we're facing into a pretty interesting situation. The fact is that, yes, it is true, we are running into some fiscal situation within our city. We are way better than many cities in the San Gabriel Valley. We're way better. We're situated way better than many cities within the San Gabriel Valley. But there's one more thing, is that if we do not pass this measure, the money, the tax dollars that's going to be spent within here in Duarte will be perhaps appropriated or siphoned out of our city. And because of that, I am seeing that we need to go ahead and capture these dollars so we can go ahead and keep these sales tax dollars within our city to benefit our own constituents here in Duarte.
Just as a reference for our audience, what our mayor is talking about is we have a sales tax issue that's coming up. Now, one thing I learned is there's a floor and a ceiling to this. And so a city cannot just blindly go above the tax rate and just assess a tax as they see fit. Right now, that ceiling is 3%, so 7.5 plus 3% brings it to 10.5% ceiling, and that is what you're referring to.
That's correct.
And currently, our tax base right now is at 9 3/4.
That's correct.
Right. So
That's
It's
correct.
9.5.
I'm sorry,
actually. It's
9.5,
9.5, and the
correct.
cap is 10.25.
10.25.
Correct.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, so with that said, the opponents, they claim in their ballot argument that the council has spent well over $450,000 since declaring a fiscal emergency. Can you share?
I'm glad to take that on. I mean, the reality is probably half that money was an expenditure in our senior center. We were doing some routine repairs and found out that we had a roof leak. People in Duarte love the senior center, and it's really volunteer run. It's a fabulous facility for our elders to get out there and really have companionship, meet each other, have a meal, engage in recreation games, clubs and things of that type. We got that fixed before the rains hit, and I know we're in February now, and January's been dry, but we had some substantial rain in November, December. Had we not fixed that, the costs would have been much higher. Another issue, this ballot measure, we didn't know when we adopted the budget that we would be going out, but we had some work to do on that, to do some research on that. So that cost almost $80,000. We spent, and this is, actually I'll go to a different one. We had $4,000 that we had to match against curb cuts. For Americans with disability access, we're trying to make sure that at our curbs that we place ramps in place so that people can access those. We receive a continually declining amount of funds from the feds. It was 40,000 this year. The cost for the amount of work that we parceled out was 44,000. So that was 4,000 of the increase. The last one was we spent 58,000 to match a grant from Measure H of about 69,000 for homeless funds. That brings up the whole issue of Measure H. I think, again, that's 69,000 coming forward over a period of time. We had to put money forward. The reality is Duarte residents are paying close to 800,000 a year. That's an element of sales tax we've already lost by the Measure H being passed.
That's correct.
It's about 800,000 a year. It's going to the county, and it's very slow flowing back out. Now, we all know that Measure H was put on the ballot to solve a very intractable and difficult problem with homelessness. And we know our residents care about that. We cared about it as well. But seeing what happened, we also found out that, there were cities that were already at the 10.25 cap, like Santa Monica, that are getting benefits from Measure H, and they're not paying a dime into it because they were already at that sales tax cap. So the ruling in place was, unless the cap changes or if another one of their taxes sunsets, they're not being charged for Measure H, yet they're still getting the benefits. And we're finding that really very commensurate benefits of what we're paying in are not being received. So that raises a question. We know that there's talk of the AQMD putting a tax on the ballot. If we do not pass Measure D, if we do not pass Measure D in Duarte and capture those dollars, somebody else could come forward. And countywide ballot measures do well. I mean, some of the metro measures have done extremely well, and we end up paying those as well. But if we lose, and if we lose the ability to capture some of those dollars because other agencies have claimed them, they're forever lost. And if we end up with low realization like we're having on Measure H, where we're getting very few of the dollars back, it's a lost opportunity for our residents.
So this brings me to the issue. So we know we've run into a deficit. What steps has Duarte taken in terms of reducing the deficit?
Well, Manoj, that's a great question. And I've been on the city council now for over 30 years. And I believe that our staff has managed the money well. We used to have almost 60 full-time employees. We have now cut that down to I think it's 46 employees, right? Full-time employees right now. We're getting along with fewer employees, but we are doing more with the money that we have. There are things that are beyond our control. We have, out of all the cities along the foothills, we have the safest crime record for Part 1 crimes. This is done by being proactive. It's not waiting till something happens, but we put on a special day car so that we wouldn't have the crimes occurring during the day, because that's when we were seeing a lot of this was going on. So we put on a special day car. Now, you take a look at, we don't always have control over what this cost is going to be. There are external forces that are playing into this. The liability trust fund that we have to pay a certain percentage of our contract into, it's kind of like the insurance policies for the sheriff's department for the contract cities. That has gone from 3% up to 11%. And the reason is juries are making these huge awards, and they aren't even going to trial. They're just giving out these awards because they know that these juries, they're runaway juries. They're awarding 10, 20, 30, 40 million dollars. So we all end up paying into something like that. So that's beyond our control. We still believe that contracting for sheriff's service is the best deal around, and we will most likely continue to do so. So again, many of these external forces are playing on us, but we still are running our city and running it well with fewer employees than we've had in previous years.
But, there's a lot of cities that are addressing the issue of just employee costs, retirement, medical costs.
Mm-hmm.
Those are going up substantially. Some of those cities actually have many more employees than we do. We do contract for services, which does help us out. But, I don't think people know that our employees are not part of the Social Security system. Well, nobody at the federal level, nobody who's getting Social Security will get Social Security wants to see that cut. The federal government can, print dollars to make sure that Social Security is in place. Well, we need to hold that trust as well with our employees that are in the California retirement system. We can all talk about whether 60 years ago or 80 years ago, whether they should have been in Social Security or a separate system. They are in that system. It is costing us more. The great news is Californians are living longer, our employees are living longer, but it is costing people as well. But we need to be faithful to those employees too and maintain those costs.
So you've mentioned a lot of things in terms of costs. You know, this reminds me of my father. He would always say, in a business or an organization, two things you have to remember. Either figure out how to increase your revenue or decrease your expense. Simple as that. That's the magic formula. And you talked about expenses. Well, they're escalating, and we don't have any control whatsoever on majority of those expenses. But I think, I don't know if our viewers realize that we actually have a very limited platform in terms of revenue. Can you share it with us on that?
Well, I'll go ahead and start with this. First of all, we have a very strong sales tax base due to the vision of a city manager many, many years ago. He brought in Target, he brought in Walmart, he brought in a lot of the car dealerships that we see there. So that gives us a very strong sales tax base. Now, what happens there then is this tax increase of 3/4 cent, that will raise $2.6 million. The thing that's really important here that most people don't recognize is 70% of our sales tax comes from people outside of our community that are paying into this. So,
Wait, are you telling me Duartians aren't buying enough cars?
no, they are. But I actually had someone say to me, well, I'm not going to shop in our community if this passes.
Yeah.
And I said, where are you going to shop? Arcadia? You're going to shop in Monrovia? They've
You're
all
just supporting
passed
them.
this.
Yeah.
You're going to be
Well,
supporting them.
They've already passed
All of
the
them
measure. They're at
have
the
already
cap.
passed. If you look
Yeah.
at all these cities surrounding us, it's already 10.25. So we're actually the lower one. And with that said, we still go shop at those places.
Yeah.
And we need to go ahead and capture these tax dollars, these sales tax dollars, because again, 70% of these people who are shopping in our city, they're not from us. And we go out to all these other cities and they're already 10.25s. We're just trying to go ahead and keep up the par. We're not trying to go ahead, we don't want to go ahead and do this, but we have to go ahead and do this. Number one thing is, if we don't go ahead and do this, some other outside entities will come and capture these dollars and we will never ever see it again. So that's why we need to go ahead and bring up that 3/4% in order to go ahead and maintain this with everyone else to be in par, so we can go ahead and capture the dollars that's
So
necessary.
let me go back to my
that
question.
stays
I wanna try
within
something.
our city.
If I go and shop in Arcadia, I am paying that extra 3/4 cent today. It is going to support Arcadia services,
That's
which are
correct.
vital to their community. If I shop in Monrovia, I'm helping Monrovia out, or Sierra Madre, or Pasadena.
That's right.
Or Glendora, I'm helping those cities out. Now, right now, when they come and shop in our city, they're not paying that extra 3/4, so it's not helping our city out. It becomes an issue from a competitive standpoint if we don't have comparable revenues. And even though we're in a better fiscal position, if we can't maintain a comparable level of public safety services, sheriff's patrols to keep our city safe, we don't want to be the soft spot if we don't have adequate safety,
So, and
comparable safety.
if I may just interject what Mr. Fasana has said, he's absolutely right about this. But just think about this. The other argument is, why don't we go ahead and stay at 9.75%? We can't, because if we keep it and we say, you know what, we don't want to go ahead and do this Measure D, some outside entity is going to go ahead and come in, so we're going to raise it all the way to the cap, 10.25. And we're not be able to go ahead and capture these tax dollars, these sales tax dollars, and our city will not be able to benefit from the sales tax.
So the 3/4%, that's the important, I think,
It's
message.
3/4 of a cent,
Cent. That 3/4 of a cent of every dollar
right?
will stay in Duarte.
And I want you
That's
to
the
think, I
important
want you to
message
think
here.
about this. You go into Target and you buy a $100 TV. That's going to cost you an additional, it'll cost everybody that comes in there 75 cents
That's
extra.
right.
So it is not significant enough to go ahead and say, no, I'm not going to shop here.
I think and myself included, you know, I don't think any of us like paying taxes.
Of course not.
We pay more than our fair share.
That's
We-
right.
We all feel.
Yes.
Yep.
But when we buy that $100 TV or whatever, you know, we're looking at the 10.25%, and we're saying, oh my God, I just paid $10.25 on that $100 TV. But what people, I think, don't realize is that, yes, that goes to the state, but what trickles back is a trickle.
Yes.
1 cent.
It's a trickle.
Yep.
Right now it's 1 cent.
Yeah, and that is the important message I think our viewers need to understand is this 3/4 cents tax on the dollar additional will 100% guaranteed stay here. So
And when you say stay here, the thing that's really important is, are people gonna go in and see the Board of Supervisors and say, in downtown LA and say, I don't like what you're doing with the money for XYZ? No, they won't, but they will come to our city council meetings and we're glad to listen to what they have to say.
right, and I think that brings the important point is, yes, this 3/4 cent stays here, but it's not just staying here. There's accountability behind that, and I think that's the important point here too. That it's not that you're taking this three-quarter of a cent on every dollar. You have to justify the expenses and things of that nature. But I want to go back to my question. Let's say this 3/4 cent tax does not go. That means we are looking at some challenging times.
You know, at this point, again, I've said, and the mayor has said that comparably, we have a good story to tell based on surrounding cities. But at the same time, we estimate we will be out of funds within the next 5 years.
Okay.
So we can't just wait 5 years. We will need to start
Now.
bringing our budget into balance, the structural balance, more quickly than that. So look where our funding goes. You know, I think 6 million, or excuse me, was it 6 million out of our 16 or 17 million comes out of public safety. 3 million out of Parks and Rec. That's half of it right there. You can't just cut personnel costs. You can't just cut legal costs. We've spent close to $1 million over the last several years trying to avoid $200 million in costs to our residents for fees that may not do any good with stormwater collection. And we've been successful at that to this point, but it's an ongoing cost. So we have to look carefully at where we make these costs and how we benefit our residents. A city, in the fabric of a city, is a combination of things. It's being secure and the safety that's provided. People expect certain recreational activities for their youth and for their seniors. Do each of us use all those services? No. Individually, I'm sure we could each find services that we could cut. But for the overall community fabric, collectively, we come together and we say, these are services that we want to provide at base level to help as many people as we can and have them be part of the city. So we think we've done a great job of that. But the reality is we still have to balance a budget. If we have less revenue, we'll be making cuts.
So something recently that happened in our city is we districted our city in terms of representation at the council level. And I know I've heard negative comments regarding that. What do you have to say about that?
Okay, I've got some definite opinions on it. The first is, the people in Duarte never voted to be districted. They weren't asked. This
We
was a
never
legal
wanted to
demand.
be districted.
Yeah, we think
And we certainly didn't want to
We
be
didn't want to.
districted. We wanted to be at large.
We're correct.
with a smaller city and with the commonality that we have, it made sense. Yeah, I can speak to my own service on the Metro Board with all the funding that gets spent there. That is very competitive. In essence, I represent San Gabriel Valley cities. You advocate for your area, but it's very divisive to the entity as a whole. And my view is this would be more divisive to our city than otherwise. Now, since we really didn't have any choice in the matter, what we decided was, all of us were elected as at-large representatives. Our focus was, let's try and keep the collegiality, the focus on the entire city. But at the same time, there's clearly a positive that we now have representation in parts of the city that were not represented before. So that's a good thing out of the districting. But with those of us that were elected from an at-large service base, we'd like to have that culture continue. And that's what we're hoping the people that have been elected initially as district representatives, that they focus on the city as a whole. So that's a positive thing. And the other thing is we've created more opportunities for people to serve too. That's the other side of it. I will say, you could argue that 5 people might cost less than 7. One person, an authoritarian, could even do it at a lower cost. But part of it is that, we're in a participative democracy, a representative democracy. We have 7 people. It's working for us. Would we be here if we had our choice? We would not, but we've done the best we can with it.
Yeah. One of the other things that I always get a kick out of is, especially after we've been nominated how many times as a friendly business city.
And
Yes.
one
And
time
one,
also.
yes.
Yep.
And that's why I really get a kick out of this comment that the city is very anti-business. And, we have high vacancy rates.
I don't think we're anti-business, and I think all of us here, we want to go ahead and see our cities thrive. If you look at all the cities from La Cañada all the way down to Glendora, all these cities are thriving. They're doing very, very well. Some of these vacancies, are you referring to the lots and so on?
No,
Or are you-
I think that folks are just referring to if they see an empty storefront.
Yeah,
that type
so
of a thing.
people need to understand that a lot of it has to do with private landowners, especially the landlords themselves too. We as a city, we cannot go ahead and mandate these. We can do the best we can to go ahead and tell these landlords to, fix it up and so on. But ultimately, it's the landlords and how much they want to go ahead and lease these places out. And if it is not at market value, or if it is above market value in for some instance, then it is the landlord needs to go ahead and figure it out. It should not go ahead and come back to the city. People need to understand that these are private. We're not in a socialist or a communist country that it's owned by the state. These are all owned by privately held owners. And they need to go ahead and be responsible. If the place is looking dilapidated, it needs to go ahead and make the facade to be better. So we can go ahead and attract better restaurants or better retails to go ahead and come to our city. If you look around everywhere in the San Gabriel Valley, especially what Mark would have said, the foothill valley of the foothills cities, all these cities, they have beautiful stores. They have great stores, good stores. I think we in Duarte deserve better. We deserve better stores in our city. So with that said, with these kind of vacancies, we need to go ahead and start working harder with these landlords. And perhaps we need to educate them a little bit more in regards to fixing it up better. The better we look, the better retails or better shops will come. The worse we look, the worse. It's like likes attracts likes, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to go ahead and make this place all dilapidated, you're going to attract these kind of dilapidated stuff happening.
But, the thing is, we are building substantial housing
we
right
are.
now. We've got hotels under construction. And the reality is, if there was a direct, you used to be able to invest in businesses that are going to provide revenue back through sales tax. We actually did that in the old days of redevelopment. Yeah. We don't have the revenue sources to do that today or the commensurate gain. But for us to intervene in private transactions where there's no assurance of income coming back, it's an inappropriate risk and use of taxpayer dollars to bet on specific businesses where there's a very limited chance of revenue coming back. So we want to create the right environment where these businesses can succeed. Many of them have done so, and we are seeing development. People are building again in the city. So we think the future is bright, and we think that as we get more residents in, they can support a different level of businesses as well. But if you look at Huntington Drive, there are things going on today on Huntington Drive.
And I just want to add what Mr. Fasan have said. We have worked so hard with my colleagues, and for the past 7 years, we worked so hard in regards to economic development. And I'm very, very pleased to say that we're having 2 hotels, 2 beautiful hotels, going to be coming into our city. For the longest time, all we had was a Duarte Inn that no one even knows, and who knows what they were
We had to go to
attracting.
Monrovia to help out our
Yeah, we have to
neighbors.
go to Monrovia to go ahead and find a good place to
Love thy neighbor. I get
that. We're gonna give all the TOT taxes to Monrovia, and the reason why we want to go ahead and put these 2 hotels is because we want to go ahead and increase TOT taxes. Now, we have to understand this. There are 3 kinds of taxes out there. One is property taxes, the other one is sales taxes, and the third one is actually special assessment taxes. And TOT taxes falls under the special assessment taxes that we as constituents in Duarte, we don't have to pay for it. It's the people who are staying here as transient, right? They're coming here, they're the one who's paying for this. So that's why
But
we're
while they're
being-
here, they will also support services. of local
Exactly.
businesses.
Yeah, local
They're here to go ahead and
There's
support us.
residual
Yes.
impact.
And it's going to go ahead and generate more sales taxes, right, directly. And that's why we want to go ahead and create these kind of stuff. We never ever want to go and, for the life of me, I don't ever want to go ahead and raise taxes. So that's why we're being so creative and find different ways so we can increase our general funds.
And that leads me to another question. So this is not a decision that the city just came up overnight. You know, someone woke up and said, hey, I have an epiphany. There has been a process through which we've gone.
We did.
Share that process.
Yes, we went to Loyola Marymount, and first of all, they went out and did a survey amongst, I think it was 400 or 500 residents, and there was a taste for going out for a tax, not overwhelmingly, but fairly significantly, where people that are coming into the city would end up paying that sales tax. Okay, and again, as we said, 70% of that 2.6 million will come from people coming into our city that live outside the city.
That's correct.
And then we formed an ad hoc committee.
That's FM3 that did that study.
Oh, that's FM3,
Yeah,
okay.
FM3.
Yeah.
So they came in, I think, were you part of the process?
I wasn't.
Okay, we had a
16
number of.
people.
But it was a
number-
16-member ad hoc
Yes.
committee,
And,
yes.
and they looked at this, they took the deep dive. They really went into the weeds, and they said, even though we don't like taxes, and a lot of them came in there saying, no way will I ever support this, they went out of there and said, we need this. And so these are responsible business people. They aren't just the yes men or yes women. We selected these people and had them volunteer because we wanted them. We wanted to hear the negative on it, but once they understood what was going to happen, they said, yes, we do need this, we
Yeah,
support
it was
it.
overwhelming, the
I-
numbers. There are a few
yeah.
that are opposed, but almost all of them.
I do want to say about, one thing I do know about the ad hoc committee that was created, what I appreciated was it was a great representation of Duarte, the
Yes.
community. It wasn't just that, oh, we had these bunch of people.
They
put
were
them
not
in there.
like-minded in any
No,
way, shape, or
no.
form.
They brought and represented different parts, different communities,
Yes.
so people could relate to these individuals as
Absolutely.
individuals. And I think that's an
Absolutely.
important point here, that this ad hoc committee was created within this community by the fabric of this community.
And again, this
representing
wasn't
the fabric.
something that we sat up on the dais one night and said, hey, let's go ahead and let's have a sales tax measure. We went into this deeply because we don't like having to raise taxes.
We don't
So-
want to. None of us want
so-
to do it, and we want to be fiscally responsible.
Right.
Manoj. And there's one more thing I want to go ahead and add is, this is the last thing we want to go ahead and do. And at the same time, we don't want to go ahead and cut our services too. We are 46. We're pretty bare boned already. And I can tell you this: we're so creative in a way, not just finding more economic developments, more taxes from the TOT taxes and so on. We're trying to go ahead, and I like to use the word efficientize, right? We're making our city more efficient. How are we going to do that? We're creating, we're replacing the street lights with LED lights. We're putting solars. We're putting solar heaters, so we can reduce all these expenses and overall
Managing your water
Oh,
consumption better with the
all,
parks.
and all that stuff. So we're trying to be more conservative and cleaner energy at the same time. We really do care about the taxes and so on. We don't want to go and raise on the taxes, but in order to go ahead and cut down all the expenses, that's what we want to do. We want to go ahead and cut down expenses as much as possible. And if some people are going to go ahead and say, well, how much does it cost to go ahead and do all these capital improvements? I can tell you it's almost down to zero because our low interest rate right now, most of the stuff, we borrow that money, and I can tell you the savings is it's far more, it's much higher than the cost of the capital improvement.
And Manoj, also, if we hadn't put this on the ballot, and all of the other cities in the San Gabriel Valley had done it, and we were the only ones, then I didn't want people to come back to me and say, Why didn't you give us the opportunity
There
to
you go.
vote on it
There you go.
and raise these revenues?
Right.
That was really important to us, to make sure that we gave the citizens the opportunity
Yeah.
to say yes or no. And if they say no, then we're gonna make the cuts. We don't have a choice.
Well, we saw what happened with Major H. We had to give people the
Yeah.
opportunity to lay it out, that here's what's happening around us, and here's where we are. We can't be ignorant of our environment, our surroundings, even as we focus on Duarte.
And the thing that's really important too is people say, well, wait a minute, how much do you guys get for your city council job? I will once again say it's $550 a month. I've been doing this for 30 years, and we have had one $100 pay increase per month over that 30 years. So it's not for us.
We're doing this because we love our constituents. We love our city.
Well-
We're doing public service.
We live here, we have a
We
stake
live
in
here.
here. When I'm off the council, I'm gonna have a stake in here. I'd
Yeah.
rather see the services than see them disappear.
So why don't we go out and share, what's the final thought that you would like to share with our viewers? We'll start with you, Margaret.
Okay, my final thought is, what's better than not paying taxes? Having somebody else pay your taxes for your services. And we know that is what will happen. And what's worse than paying taxes? Paying more taxes and having absolutely no say in how that money is being spent. So that's really the bottom line on this whole thing.
All right, thank you, Margaret. John?
We faced a lot of issues over the last 10 years. We faced recession, we faced fire, we faced flood, we faced economic downturn. We're facing the rebirth and construction along Huntington Drive, but the most important thing is you get out there and vote. Whatever your decision is, please get out there and vote.
Thank you, John.
And I would like to say, the last thing I want to go ahead and do is raise taxes. But unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, we're facing outside forces that would potentially be able to go ahead and take our money, and we'll never ever see it again, like what my colleagues have said about Measure H. So what I want to go ahead and do is keep our Duarte taxes in Duarte. That's what we want to go ahead and do. So we can go ahead and benefit from this, and not some outside entity is going to go ahead and take this money away from us, and we'll never ever see it again. Do you want to go ahead and do that? What if I come into your house and go ahead and take your money? That's not what we want to do, right? We are here to go ahead and serve the city of Duarte, and we're making sure that our money stays here in Duarte.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Well, folks, I want to thank you for taking the time tonight and sharing directly, and hopefully our viewers will find these facts. Folks, do your homework. All this information is online. You can easily get it. But in conclusion, I want to share with you something recently.
Can I just mention one
please,
thing?
John. Go
There's a
ahead.
voter pamphlet too. Look at the voter pamphlet, the measures in the voter pamphlet, and the arguments are there as well.
Thank you. I want to share a story that something that I've recently in last month started doing with my daughter. Every evening when she gets up from work, it's usually about 7:30, so you know it's dark. My daughter and I, we get in our tennis shoes, get our jogging outfits on, and we walk. Sometimes we walk on Huntington Drive. Sometimes she chooses to walk on up the trail, Royal Oaks. We've even gone down to Duarte Road and walked. Depends on wherever she wants to walk, we'll go. But you know, I never think about, will the lights be on? I never think about, will the pavement be cracked and safe for her to walk? I never think about the manicured Median Island landscaping or the public access ways being all nice where the trees are not in my face. I don't think about being scared because I expect to be safe. I expect my pavement to be walkable. I expect the aesthetic values of the landscaping, general landscaping, to be in a fashion order. But you see, I take all that for granted, and I'm sure you do too if you really think about it. But I hate taxes. Don't ask my wife, but I hate taxes. But you know what I realized? Coming March, first time, I actually have a choice. I have a choice to secure taxes for my kids who have grown up in Duarte. You have a choice to secure that 3/4 cents of every dollar so that we can keep this city, maintain this city to the level that we have accustomed ourselves to. So I hope you think about this, and I hope you join me in supporting Measure D, because remember, D is for Duarte. Thank you for joining us. Until next time.